guys, and welcome back to Rebel Base Savior. Today we're going to talk about some of what I like to call the hidden gems in the Way of the Force set. Hidden gems could be commons, uncommons, or even some rares that are going under the radar right now. So there's a lot of interesting cards to talk about here, so let's get right to it. Alright, so the first card up that we're going to talk about here is Triple Threat. It's a 1-cost blue villain event that reads reroll 3 character dice, then turn one of them to any side. And I've got to say, I really like this card a lot. I think it has a lot of decent applications in the meta and even going forward, especially in trilogies as well. So I know I've heard some people say that this card actually sucks. Can I say that? Is that too improper for Canadian to say? Well, I'll say I'm sorry if I offended you. They say that it's maybe not so good, maybe it's terrible, but I really like it. I think it gets you out of some situations with weaker character dice on the table. You can just re-roll them and maybe one of your own and turn the one that you want to the side that you want. So either to remove some damage from yourself happening, or if you happen to, they happen to re-roll really well, or you can turn your own die to some damage if you really want to tip the scales in your favor. So I think it's got a lot of great applications here, just for 1 cost. I think that's really, really good, because then you can still play something else on your turn if you really want to. The second card up is Count Dooku's Solar Sailor, and I think this card is also pretty good. It's a 3-cost support vehicle for villains. It's blue, and its die sides are 2 focus, 1 shield, 2 shields, 2 resources, and a blank. So just about every side on there is a 2 value, with the exception of that 1 shield side. And it has an activated ability. That's after you activate this support, you may draw a card. So that's pretty cool, because you might draw into some 0-cost removal, like a hidden motive, or maybe even a 1-cost removal that's pretty good, like an overconfidence or something else that you're looking for. So that's really nice. For 3 costs, some people say it might be a little bit expensive, but you're also getting two focus sides on your die, as well as 2 shield sides and a 2 resource side. So, getting this out on the table, it might actually be able to swing you some big damage on your first round with the 2 focus, or it may be the target of removal, letting you re-roll some of your other dice perhaps, or it could almost pay for itself with the 2 resource sides. So I think it's got a lot of legs, and I really do like it in limited formats like draft and sealed, because those 2 focus sides are really good. You can save your cards, not have to re-roll them, to discard and to re-roll. So that's always a big benefit in draft, when you can hold on to all of your crappy cards that you have that you don't want to just get rid of to re-roll. To who knows what you're going to get. So the third card up is Renewed Purpose, and it's a 1-cost blue hero event that says spot a plot to draw 3 cards. So this is one of the new cards that has you spot a plot, so it's restricted in what you can actually, what decks you can put it in. And what I like about it is it kind of reminds me of Ancestral Recall from Magic the Gathering, which was 1 blue, draw 3 cards. This has a little extra requirement, but I think this is a card that if we start to see a lot of more 0-cost removal or 1-cost removal in the game than we already have, this could be a really good card to just draw into something that maybe you didn't get in your hand, or maybe you got a lot of resources and you're trying to dig for a big vehicle or an upgrade to play, and you've got a resource to spend, and you're drawing 3 cards. So that's 60% of your starting hand. So that's pretty good, I think. And just for one resource and a plot, it's getting a lot of play in those OTK decks right now, which are kind of one-trick pony decks. But I think that perhaps as we see more decks coming out in Way of the Force, we might actually see a place where this card really shines a little bit more. And the last card we're going to talk about is also a blue card, and it's Beguile. And Beguile is a 2-cost blue neutral event that reads reroll an opponent's die, then turn one of their die to any side, then remove one of their die. And this is arguably better than Mind Trick is from the Awakenings block, because that card had a spot a blue requirement, and you really didn't want to play it unless your opponent had at least 4 dice in the pool, but usually you waited for them to roll out like all their vehicles or something like that in order to get the most bang for your buck out of it. But Beguile is pretty good early game, mid game, and equally as good late game, because it lets you re-roll that first die, and then the other 2 things that you can do actually lets you turn the same die. There's no restriction on it needing to be a different die or anything like that, so that's really neat about it. So if you re-roll that opponent's die, and it's a Sabine die or something like that, if you got silly and re-rolled that, and it went from a 2 damage side back to a 3 damage side or something like that, then you could just say, okay, well, I'm going to turn that die to the blank, or I'm going to turn another die and then remove the die that I just had you re-roll. So I like the flexibility of Beguile. I think it's really, really cool, and for 2, it's pretty well costed, I think. Don't have any complaints about that card. So, and it's neutral, so it goes in both hero and villain decks, just like Mind Trick did, but without that spot blue. So that, to me, is a big win-win right there. So next up, we're going to talk about some red cards, and the first card on the list here is Blaze of Glory. And Blaze of Glory is a 1-cost hero red event that reads activate one of your characters, then remove any number of an opponent's dice showing damage and deal damage to that character equal to the combined value of the dice. So it's kind of like a super guardian. You can, if your opponent has rolled out 2 characters or 3 characters, and there's 5 dice in the table that all have like 7 damage, and you've got 1 character left with 1 health, you can have them take all of that damage onto themselves and just kill that character off and save yourself the other 6 damage that you would have took, because it just removes the dice rather than off the table, rather than having them resolve them, and you just deal damage to that character equal to the combined value. So it all happens in one swift action, so it doesn't take into account things like the ranged, melee, and indirect. It just all applies it at once, so you can apply it all on the same character, and that can be a big deal. I think this is pretty good in any format, but in the limited formats, again, it's really, really good for just using a Gungan or something like that to remove a whole crap load of dice off the table in one shot at the cost of 1 or 2 health. The next card up here is Long-Term Plan, and this is a card that's getting some talk right now. It's being chatted up a lot. It is a 3-cost red hero plot, and by cost it goes towards character points because it's a plot, and has an action that says exhaust this plot to place 1 resource on it or to resolve one of your dice, increasing its value by the number of resources on this plot. And so the neat thing here is that it's kind of like a card that you charge up. You place a resource on it 1 round, and then the second round maybe you do it again, and in the third round you can exhaust it as the action to resolve a die to increase its value by 2. So maybe you can get it up to 3. This seems pretty good in like a 2-character deck, maybe like a Finn Maz, or maybe even like a deck in trilogies might be able to use this pretty well. I think it's definitely got some use here. Maybe not in a whole lot of decks because it is a red hero, but I think just having a +2 on a die essentially every single round from the 3rd round on is pretty good. I'd like it to be 2, but it's cool because it's reusable. It doesn't have you remove the resources after you use them. Maybe later on down the line, if this becomes too powerful, they'll do something like that. But this looks pretty good as is. So give this one a shot, and if you see it in your draft pile, you should probably take it so that someone else doesn't take it, because we all know there's a lot of 1 damage, 2 damage sides in draft, and it would be neat to have turn those sides into 3s and 4s. So you can do that with this. The next red card is Grand Entrance, and it is a 1-cost red neutral event that says activate one of your characters, reroll any number of its character and upgrade dice, then reroll any number of its character and upgrade dice. And that's pretty cool. So this is one of those cards that lets you activate a character, so you can get around any of those running interference plays that may be locking out your activation of your character, because this is technically a card effect. And it lets you get that activation, so you roll your dice in, and then it lets you re-roll any number of those dice up to 2 more times. So that's really cool. So maybe you use this with like a swiftness or something like that to give it ambush. So you activate, fix your dice to whatever you want with the 3 rolls, and then be able to resolve something. So this might be cool on something like a Leia, or something like a Finn, or if you really want to bust out those old Poe Maz decks, that might be good to try as well. But yeah, and it's 1 cost, so that's pretty good. I don't think it's good in something like draft. It's probably better late game rather than early game. But it's there. It's a card you can definitely use, and I'm sure it has some pretty good use. The last red card we're going to talk about here is Home Turf Advantage, and I don't think this card is super great, but I think that it does something that no other card in the game does, and that's really cool. It's a 2-cost red neutral plot that says bring 2 battlefields to the game during setup. If your battlefield would be chosen for the game, you choose one of your 2 battlefields instead, set the other one aside. So this might be neat for something like Mill, which might say to themselves, well, you know, am I going to go faster than this deck or slower than this deck? And they're not really sure. So they might put Imperial Palace as one of their 2 battlefields, and then maybe Oto Gunga for the heal as another one of their battlefields. I've been playtesting this one quite a bit, actually, and I found that it's really just a big off-putting thing for the opponent, and they tend not to take your battlefield at all and give you the shields. So, you know, if you want to get good use out of your battlefield, you kind of have to play either New Orders to switch your battlefield, or play yellow so you can hyperspace jump and switch the battlefield at some point in the game, and then you have some options. So if you brought 2, you know, you might switch it to Command Center or Otogunga or Imperial Palace, or whichever of those 2 you bought, and that would be a pretty neat play. You know, you'd have to play red-yellow, which means you lose blue, which has a lot of really good cards like the ones we're talked about here, and some other good removal that people already know about, like Pacify. So I think this card may be pretty good. Also maybe in an aggro deck, but I haven't seen a deck that runs it too well just yet. So last up, let's talk about some of those yellow cards. And the first yellow card that I want to talk about and highlight in Way of the Force is Rigged Detonation. And this is a really cool card. It's a 1-cost hero yellow event that says play only if an opponent controls the battlefield. Deal indirect damage to that opponent equal to the number of resources they have, to a maximum of 5. So this is really punishing if you're playing a slow deck and your opponent is playing a very fast deck that also generates a lot of resources. So this could really hurt, like those solo Sabine decks that you're seeing a lot right now, or any of those really fast 2-character decks that just sit on resources to play big upgrades. So if you can somehow get them to hang on to 3 to 5 resources, I think it's worth it at 3 damage, but at 5 it would be even better. It also has the added bonus of automatically proccing the Jet of Partisans if you're playing like a Plo partisan deck, so you can guarantee indirect damage every single round. If you pair it with Truce, you're absolutely going to guarantee that 1 damage, because they'll have a resource from Truce, and then it'll take 1 indirect damage, and that's all you need to block the Partisans. So that's really neat. And you know, it's just damage out of hand that yellow gets for hero, which I don't think it had before. So now it has that in Rigged Detonation, and it's indirect, but you know, that's not too bad, especially if you can do 5 of it. 5 indirect is for 1 resource is very, very strong. The second yellow card that I want to cover out of the 3 here is In the Crosshairs, and this is a 3-cost yellow neutral event, and it has ambush, and it says choose a symbol, then remove any number of dice showing that symbol. So this is just really awesome. So, you know, we have a lot of cards like block and dodge and defend and dive that remove specific types of sides showing on a die, and we have force misdirection, which means you have to have a blue die with that side. In crosshairs is a little bit more expensive than those other 5 cards at 3, but it does have ambush, so maybe that's worth it. And it gives you the liberty to just choose a symbol, and you could say, you know, if your opponent rolls crazy good on you and they've got 6 or 7 melee damage showing, and you're like, I'm not going to survive this. You know, in the past you may say, well, I'm going to have to slam down this second chance to survive this onslaught. But now you can say, in the crosshairs, I choose melee and remove all of their dice and watch them cry. And that would be really, really awesome to do against, you know, blue hero decks or blue villain decks or any of those decks that run a lot of sticks. But also something like drive-by shooting, which has to fix a lot of its dice to ranged in order to do damage. In the crosshairs is really good against it. And the great thing about it, it doesn't have a spot requirement. So maybe that's also calculated into its cost a little bit. So that's such a great card. Such a great card, and I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, you know, but it totally should be in a deck, or you should find space for it, because it's a yellow blowout card that is new in the set. And the final card we're going to talk about today is Streetwise, and it's kind of a personal favorite of mine. I haven't had too many decks where I've been able to test it out yet, but this card looks really, really good. It's 1 cost, and yellow support neutral, so either hero or villain. And it says, before you play an event, you may exhaust this support to decrease its cost by 1. So for 1 cost, it will pay for that resource on the first yellow event that you play, and then every turn after that it's out on the board, it's essentially like you get to look at your hand with one cost yellow events in it as if they're free. So that's really cool, and it's going to save you a lot of resources over the course of a game. You can kind of think of it like it binds all things, but instead of blue upgrades, it's yellow events. So it really plays into yellow's strength at reducing the cost of what yellow does, which is play a lot of events. Like, you know, we just saw in the crosshairs, you could play that for 2 with this, or rig detonation you could play for free, or any of those easy pickings you could play for free. There's a lot of stuff you could pay for free with Streetwise. I think maybe, you know, hero and villain they get to use this pretty much equally. So I think this is a really good card that's going under the radar right now. You know, you might see it in like a DJ Afro deck. I think that's where people are putting it right now, because it's not a lot of mono because of Kylo. But I think that there's still room for some experimentation in this meta for this card. So you should check it out. If you're playing mono yellow, or if you're playing yellow, and if you're playing a deck that has yellow and just has a lot of yellow events in it, this might be worth a deck spot. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that video as much as I had in making it, and that you learned something about a few cards that you might want to take a closer look at in the Way of the Force set. So until next time, thanks for watching here at Rebel Base Savior.